Okay.
Oh yes, I can hear you fine, absolutely fine.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, and welcome once again to our forensic gangster. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Paul, and
Good.
thank you for inviting me back. I must have done a good job the first time round because you've invited me back.
Well, yeah. You are always incredibly welcome, and it's always a
Thank you.
pleasure to chat with you. Just before we kick off with part two of our sort of we chat about the lawyers, like we did last week, just wanted to say a little bit about the, yes, it still hurts that the dude is no longer with us. But the one thing that he really would have liked to have seen would have been a bigger and effective coming together of everybody under one banner, and everybody to sort of get on the train of supporting Steve and Brendan. I suppose you've probably seen this as well. From time to time, there is, for want of a better word, certain frictions within the truther community. Would that be a fair thing to say?
On no question, and it really doesn't. It doesn't really matter what channel we're talking about here.
Yeah.
There's always going to be a little bit of friction, a little bit of tension, because when you think about it, the majority of us, we're strangers, really strangers from all around the world, and we come together in this melting pot.
Yeah.
And of course, you're always going to get a little bit of tension, a bit of friction. It's the nature of the beast, I think.
Yeah.
It's the nature of the beast.
Yeah. I'm. For me, I've always said that it's as if, because we as supporters are so hurt, so offended by what's been done to Steve and Brendan, that at times we let that anger manifest itself by lashing out at people who we shouldn't be lashing out at, but it's
Correct.
that it's just that horrible feeling in us about this should not have happened. This should not have happened to Steve
Yes.
and Brendan, and it has, and that's a real. So I'm just trying to see if I can get this. Make sure that we are up and running. Yes, we are. That's good. I don't have the dude had has got a second monitor.
Okay.
He does it on one channel, and he's got a separate monitor to
Yes.
see what's going on. And he's always said, you should get two monitors. Well, dude, I was never and will never be as high tech as you. And I can imagine him going around, St. Peter and the rest of them up there, telling them about the latest gadget.
Well, upstairs, he's got as many monitors as he wants. So
yeah,
he's
absolutely.
doing okay.
Yeah, one of the most recent things he bought for himself was a drone. Not a lot of people know that he bought himself a drone. He was going to. Well, I've gone and got myself a drone, and I was going to ask him to explain how it all works, and now he's buggered off. So I'm going to have to try and figure it out myself.
I'm sure there's a lot of YouTube videos and for self-help guides. But if I could just say about what you were saying about our supporters, the truthers, and that, a lot of people feel very frustrated because everything is going so slow, right?
Yes.
It's like being stuck in molasses or quicksand.
Yeah.
One step forward, two steps back, and as supporters, we're going, well, guys, what are you waiting for? But you could understand from the state's perspective, they want to slow it right down.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
They're in no hurry at all.
Yeah.
And some of us do get very heated up and very frustrated. You're correct.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think it's the one of the things that Kratz used to always try and promote was the Sean Reck documentary, A Murder in the Park, where a clearly guilty person was exonerated far too easily. You know, the Anthony Porter was clearly guilty of the shooting of these two people, but they managed to coerce our story Simon into, you know, into a confession that was clearly false, clearly coerced. So yes, there has to be, you know, certain safeguards to you know, things that you have to go through to make sure that this conviction is overturned. But I mean, yes, you know, for me, the obvious thing would be, you know, somebody should have stepped in. I don't know who, and said, look, just release these two until we manage to find out exactly what the story is here, because clearly they were not. Ken Kratz said, didn't he? He said, I didn't have to just prove Steve and Brendan guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. I proved them guilty beyond all doubt. And I thought that was absolutely ridiculous, you know.
Correct.
But yes, the other thing I was going to say was that sometimes it's almost as if one or two people are, dare I say it, there's a little bit of jealousy sometimes creeps in, you know. I remember somebody telling me, you know, and I won't name names, but they said that, you know, they never mentioned that they used to go and visit Steve because they knew that other people could react badly to that. Yes. You know, you know, there would be people there that want to be the ones that are taking all the attention and all the, you know, yes, all the highlights. In fact, I mentioned off air, didn't I, that I remember Carla Chase being told by individuals in certain, you know, Facebook chats and stuff. You're who are you? You're not an Avery. Who are you? And it's like, you know, of course she's an Avery. She's got a different surname for, you know, because she's married to Mr. Chase, yes, you know, but how absurd. I mean, even that, you know, that iconic scene where Stephen Avery arrives back in 03, back at the salvage yard, all happy, drinking champagne, all hugs and everybody, and he's holding a baby. Do you know who that baby is?
Let me guess, related to Carla Chase?
It's Carla Chase's daughter, yeah, just born, yeah, you know, and it's just bizarre, isn't it, that people would,
yes, and the press asked him, who's that? And he goes, I don't know. I don't know.
Exactly. How would that? It's a relative of some description, you know, but you know, it's a great scene, and in actual fact, there's one tiny 2-second clip where you actually see a very young Brendan walk past. Yeah, yes, very, very young Brendan. You have to watch it quite carefully, but he's there.
Yes.
And I wanted to, you know, also ask you, you know, well, point out, sorry, you know, I remember when I was phoning Herman, and I would have loved for him to have let slip something that I could have gone to, you know, Zellner with and say, oh, he's just said this or he's just said that. You know, yes, everybody would love to be the one that busts the case open. And this yes, is where guys like yourselves, you know, your Millbillies, you know, yes, and all these other researchers looking at it and finding the evidence.
A lot of stuff.
It's just amazing. Yeah.
And, you know, the thing is this, right? The MTSO and the investigators, even Ken Kratz, Fallon, Norm Gunn, they must be very concerned because it's the big effort of a lot of people. And you look at Richard, right? Eric Cosi. Yeah. Oh, my Lord. When you look at his past videos, he covered everything.
Yeah.
And he was one of the first people to do it, yeah, which is amazing. So, you know, like your channel, my channel, Foul Play, and many other really excellent YouTubers, Millbilly, who's digging into a lot of the phone calls.
Yeah.
Right. And you get all these golden nuggets.
Oh, yeah.
And slowly the jigsaw puzzle pieces are coming together. Right. So yeah, all of us, we try and do the best we can, how we can do it. Right. My area of expertise is looking at. Right. So I dig into the forensics. I try and find inconsistencies, things that don't quite add up, and I try my best to explain them and I've
Yes.
also got a very big interest in Brendan Dassey. Oh, we all do, right?
Well,
and
yes.
so each one of us gives what they can, right? When no one can understand this case by themselves. It's too big.
Yeah.
It's huge, and
That's
it
it.
spans right from 1985, right?
Yes.
When he when he first got arrested, right? And so it expands many years, and the case is extremely complex, right? So at the end of the day, we do what we can, but we mustn't fight each other because it's counterproductive, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So anyway, we've had a whole load of people join in. So
Oh, awesome.
we should maybe take a moment just to say hi to everybody. Something that I was always very bad at, but I should really take a bit more time. We've got T1. Hi, T1. Dean
T1,
Green.
yep.
Yeah. Crockett Thompson. Now,
Okay.
Crockett, definitely Aussie. Deborah Kent, definitely Aussie. I think we've got an infestation of Aussies, to tell you the truth.
That's because we're awake. The Americans, I think, are still asleep.
Yeah.
Although I think T1 is from the US, so it's good to see T1 here. Yes.
Yeah. And talking about, obviously, commiserations on the cricket, but you'll have a chance in the next one. Don't worry, because Josh Butler's not going to play in the next one.
No, look, I forgot to say.
Yeah.
My football team wants to thank you personally, Paul, because after we discussed the LA Crows, we actually won a game.
You didn't just win it; you annihilated the opposition by about double the points, 80-40.
The Adelaide football coach, he wants to thank you personally. He says, "Say thank you to that guy." Because he provided the inspiration. He provided the inspiration. Now, mind you, we won't win again, but at least,
yes,
we broke the ducks, and we're not going to be zero. Thank God for that.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Paul. That was unbelievable.
I'll tell you what, I do actually genuinely, whenever there's an Aussie Rules football match, I watch it with a lot more knowledge now. Oh my goodness. Here's another character joined us, another one.
Who is he?
Clicked on the wrong one. It moved as I clicked.
Oh, Mark.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He's always kicking around.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, look, and what is amazing is how international this really is. Like 5 years ago, I never would have thought me being on a channel like this or being part of a group, but it goes to show the breadth of interest in this case or in the cases, but also not only Stephen and Brendan, many wrongful conviction cases. And it's almost like a weekly occurrence, especially in the US, where people are being let out in droves.
Oh, yeah.
Because of bad, shoddy science and bad forensics. And it truly is amazing. It's amazing, and it's good to see an international cast of people because you learn so much, Paul. You really do.
Yeah. I mean, I was genuinely surprised, shocked when I read the book by Radley Belko and Tucker Carrington. It's the I got it there. Yes, the Cadaver King. The Cadaver King and the. Let me get it. I'll show you it.
Okay. Wow.
And
no.
you know what it's about, don't you? Michael
Don't
West
tell me
and
it's
Stephen
about
Haynes.
West.
Yes.
Don't tell me it's about West.
It's absolutely brilliant book, and it even mentions the fact that West and Hayne were so successful because what they did was they put adverts in police journals, basically saying, if you want a conviction, hire us. Our conviction rate is phenomenal. We and also touting their new methods of finding evidence.
Yeah.
And it was all, it's all bogus.
It was complete garbage.
Bogus. Yes, absolutely.
It was complete garbage, correct.
Yeah.
But you see, if you got a sharp DA or prosecuting attorney, and the judge has got no idea what you're talking about, and also the jury is completely bamboozled. If you have a professional that comes on the stand and uses real big words and puts up some fancy PowerPoints, you go, oh, wow, that's got to be true, right?
Yeah.
Except when you dig deeper into it, it's snake oil. It's complete garbage.
Yeah, yeah. And what it is, it's for me, it would be a case of your forensic experts should be completely neutral. I once said to Travis this, you know, isn't it a shame that often in these cases one side has to get a load of experts, you know, the state bring a load of experts in, and then the defense has to get a load of experts in to try and counteract the state's experts. The experts should be neutral in this because the science should be so clear.
No, but they're not.
No,
they're not. And you know, we could talk about it later because that's a point I wrote down here. The massive disequilibrium between the state and the defense when it came to experts. And, you know, Kathleen Zellner highlighted that. And so she's flipped the tables now by hiring, I think I wrote it down, it's about like 8 different professionals in all aspects of the case. And it's sort of, you think, wow, if Stephen actually had these professionals, experts during his trial, they would have been very powerful to rebut a lot of what the state's experts were saying, because what a lot of the state experts were saying was complete garbage, right? They sort of got a point, and they stretched it out like that, and you go, oh yeah, must be true.
Yes,
not at all.
Yeah,
not at all.
So talking about the lawyers, particularly focusing on Dean and Jerry, that I think most people can see that they were they did the best they could. I've certainly read Jerry's book. Have you had a chance to read Illusion of Justice yourself?
Yes, I've got it. I'm about halfway through it, and it's a very, very information dense book. It sort of like is beautifully, in my opinion, is beautifully written. I've got the ebook. Like I said, I'm about halfway through. Yeah. And it goes through a lot of the history. It talks about his background, what he does. And it's interesting. I saw a couple of YouTube videos on him, and he goes, I try and represent the underdog, right? I'm always for the underdog. And I'll tell you what, his client was an underdog. Stephen, you know, huge. Really good book.
The experts that Dean and Jerry did hire, one of them, of course, Larry White, never gets to testify in either trial, does he?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
And that was something that even Steve Drizzen, in one of his messages to me, you know, he pointed out that yes, the expert that was hired for Steve was Professor Larry White, an expert on false confessions, and he was offered but wasn't even called by Brendan's defense.
Yes.
Who chose not to go with him. And apparently one of the things that they said was that we'd had an expert on some other aspect of the confession, and we didn't want to, you know, sort of overstress the point. Well, I'm sorry guys, but you know, you kind of have to overstress the point. This was a false confession.
Correct.
You know?
Correct. And you know, that's something that we can discuss, like some of the issues like hindsight that I think really hurt both Stephen and Brendan. You know, now that we look back, there were a lot of mistakes made.
Yeah. I mean, when you've got Ken Kratz saying that, you know, Brendan should have taken the plea deal.
Yes.
There was no way that Brendan was going to testify at Stephen's trial when you had Professor Larry White that was going to show exactly what was wrong with Brendan's confession. You know, Wiegert and Fassbender do such a shoddy job,
Yes.
don't they?
Yes.
You know, it's
They do.
It's. I must admit, one of the things that has sort of a bit of a tangent that's often something I thought about was, you know, when Brendan comes up with this, you know, they ask him about, you know, what happened to the head. He punched her, cut the hair, cut the throat, all this kind of stuff, and you know the sort of gory aspects to it.
Yes.
I can't help thinking that some of that of his imagination would come from his older brother, Bobby.
Oh, could possibly be. I mean, the thing is that he clearly was guessing. The only thing he didn't say was, "Oh, we dunked her head in water."
Yeah,
Right? That's the only thing he
yeah,
didn't say. He
yeah,
mentioned everything else, right? And it's like a checklist. He's going, head. What can you do to a head? Oh, you
yeah,
can slap it, you can punch it,
yeah,
you can slash it, and
yeah.
you can see Wiegert. His temperature would have been rising,
Oh yeah,
thinking, no, 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 no. That's not what I'm thinking, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
then, of course, you know what he said. You know, who shot her
Exactly.
in the head, right? And then his classic response was, well, Stephen did. And the reason why he said Stephen did is because obviously he never did it, as in Brendan never did it. And the investigators told Brendan, we know what happened, right?
Yeah,
So he just merely echoed what they apparently already knew. And when Fassbender said, well, why didn't you tell us? And he goes, because I couldn't think of it. And
yeah,
anyone with common sense would have gone, Brendan, ring up your mum, get her to pick you up, just go home.
yeah,
Go home now.
yeah, yeah.
But
Uh,
yet they persisted. They persisted, Paul.
yes, and I also get the sense that Brendan, because of the fact that he guesses at school, he's thinking of
Yes.
Bert and Ernie as some sort of people who are going to go away and they're going to come back with the right answers. They're going to correct his homework and they're going to say, "No, you were wrong. You didn't do that. You didn't do this. You didn't do." You know, he's assuming that they're going to go away and come back later on and say, "No, that didn't happen."
Correct. And in actual
And
fact,
what do they do?
that's why they had several interrogation sessions
Yes.
because Fassbender goes, some of the things you told us in this interrogation doesn't make any sense, and we got a
Yes.
couple of things we want to clear up. And
Yeah.
you're thinking, wait a minute, you're now telling your suspect to change his story because it doesn't suit what you believe took place. So Brendan, he's malleable. He started to adjust his story, but in
Yeah.
a lot of cases, he went in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, Brendan, no, that couldn't have happened. And so they were guiding him, right, strategically guiding him to come up with some type of consensus,
Yeah.
right? And that's why they hobbled together a confession,
Yes.
and that's why Ken Kratz said, right, you got a confession, let's go with it. And that's
Yeah.
what they went with on March the 2nd with a press conference.
Absolutely. And the fact is that, you know, they could have cobbled together any kind of story they like because so many facts change. It's like, you know, one of the Seventh Circuit judges, you know, talks about the state simply cherry picked certain bits of that confession.
Yes,
And
they
they
did.
came up with a story. And they could have come up with dozens and dozens of different scenarios based on what Brendan.
They could have. Sorry, Paul. They could have got him to admit to a whole number of crimes in Wisconsin, and
Yeah.
maybe some historical crimes like, oh, so you were on the grassy knoll, weren't you,
Yeah.
Brendan? Oh yeah. I'm the
Yeah.
one who shot JF, and he would have
Yeah.
admitted to it because he's got obviously no idea what was going on. But you know, common sense should have prevailed in Fassbender and Wiegert to realize by looking at their personal notes that, oh my God, he's changing his story in different interrogation sessions. But what's even worse, Paul, Brendan actually changed his story in the same interrogation session to the point whereby the investigator goes, that didn't happen, did it, Brendan? No. You know, about the cutting of the hair, right? He goes, why did you cut her hair? I don't know. Where did you put your hair? Where did they put the hair? On the cabinet,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
On the cabinet, right? And of course, they couldn't find any hair anywhere, including the vacuum cleaner. And then I think on the final confession, when he came back the following day, they said to him that hair cutting incident never took place, did it, Brendan? No.
No.
So he was flip-flopping
Oh, yeah.
between yes, it happened, no, it didn't happen. So the only thing that was consistent was it was inconsistent.
Exactly.
Right?
I mean, even looking at when you look at the control question, there's been a lot of debate as to, when they say, she had a tattoo, did you see it? And he says, obviously, so do you disagree with me?
Yeah.
But I don't know. People have said some people have said that Brendan says, I don't know where it is. To me, it sounds like I don't know what it is, because you knew straight away that the next thing, if he had admitted to seeing a tattoo, they would have said, what did the tattoo look like? And that's why he says, yeah, I don't disagree, but I don't know what it is, because he already knows that they're going to ask him a next question, to which he's going to have to do another guess.
And you see, one of the biggest problems was, and academics have actually gone through the entire testimony, right?
Yes.
They've written a research paper, huge research paper. And the one thing you don't ask someone like Brendan Dassey are 50-50 questions.
No.
Because you could guess your way. You can say, oh yeah, no. And 50% of the time you're going to be right, 50% of the time you're going to be wrong. But if the investigator's saying, oh no, that can't be right, Brendan, then he goes, oh, I said a wrong guess. Oh yeah, it had to be like this. So in that regard, the way they were questioning him for someone of his ability was very bad.
Yeah, it's not just in Brendan's case, but we see this so often with the youngsters being treated like as if they're little adults. Now, yes, kids can be big. Brendan, I think, is big for his age. But underneath, you've got somebody who's about a mental age of about 10 or 11.
Yes. He was like a teddy bear.
Yeah.
Right? He's the type of kid that all he wanted to do was to be left alone, play his video games, and not cause any trouble at all. He's not the type of guy that's going to be a party to a violent crime like a rape, dismemberment, cremation. Then go to Uncle Steve. See ya, Steve. I've got to go home now, because my mum wants me to be in bed by 10. Yeah. And you're thinking, wait a minute, how on earth did the jurors actually think that scenario took place? He's completely bizarre. Yeah. Completely bizarre. And it goes to show, what must the jurors be thinking now? With all the blowback that's happened over many, many years after making a murderer come out, what must those jurors be thinking when professors, law professors, academics go, hey, this is the biggest piece of garbage I've ever seen. Yep. How can anyone fall for this? They must be feeling terrible.
And yet, on the other hand, I get the sense that because of Stephen Avery, his family's status, it's like a class thing. Some of them couldn't care less,
question.
And some of them were just quite happy to look after themselves, because they knew that there could be repercussions if Stephen Avery was exonerated. They fudged this deal, didn't they, together, where they vote traded. They traded votes. We'll find him guilty on murder, but not guilty on mutilation of the corpse, on the basis that then there would have to be this retrial, which, of course, there never was.
I think, Paul. Sorry to interrupt. I think Paul.
Yeah, no, you carry on.
Message. They're trying to send a message. That's what they were trying to say. But the problem is, the message actually fell on deaf ears. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And you've got the state forensic pathologist, Dr. Eisenberg, I call it Dr. Leisenberg, right? Who said in her reports, oh, there's evidence of saw marks, fine blade saw marks. There's a curved saw mark in here. And Kathleen Zellner's expert, Dr. Syme, said there's evidence of dismemberment,
Yes.
right? And
Yeah.
one thing that Brendan Dassey never says, we took Teresa Horbach apart and we put the body parts in the fire. He said, and he clearly said in his interrogation, I grabbed her by the feet, Uncle Steve grabbed her by the shoulders, and we put her on the fire.
Yes.
Hello.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
that's
and
right.
Ken Kratz goes, oh yeah, but there was a rake and there was a shovel, and that's how the body got all broken to pieces.
Yeah.
Forgetting, of course, that the state forensic pathologist said, no, there were hesitation saw marks right through the bones, right?
Yeah.
So they were clean cut. You need a surgical instrument or a hacksaw blade to do cuts like that. Exactly what you find in a hunting kit, right?
Yes.
You dismember a bear or a deer, right? You've got a deer dressing kit, and Dr. Symes had one right in front of Kathleen Zellner, and it had all the tools you need to take a deer apart and to take a human being apart. No problems at all. But if one of the most important aspects of the murder is shown to be completely false, i.e. Brendan never said, oh yeah, by the way, we took it to pieces and we put her in the fire, or a burn barrel, that goes to tell you that Brendan had no idea what he was talking about.
Absolutely.
Crazy.
I remember your colleague, Big Jeff, pointing out, the fact that, Brendan draws this picture of Teresa on the bonfire. She's whole.
Yeah.
It's just his way of depicting, something which obviously never saw. But
if he had drawn Teresa in fragments, in limbs, I'll be going, this doesn't look good. But the mere fact that he drew an entire body, right, goes to show that no. This is not what happened, right? It clearly was not what happened. And how do we know it didn't happen? First of all, what the forensic anthropologist found, right? And the mere fact that the cremains were spread over a huge area and at least 3 separate locations, in the burn barrel, in the burn pit, and also in the Manitowoc County gravel pit, right? So the police were scratching their heads going, oh my God, we're finding more and more of these cremains. It's not making any sense.
So looking at the actual the bonfire itself, I think one of the criticisms of Dean and Jerry, certainly for me, would be the fact, as I was watching Making a Murder, I was waiting for somebody to come along and say, this is garbage. You cannot reduce a body. I mean, I knew for a fact, you cannot reduce a body to those cremains in just a couple of hours on a bonfire. And I was just waiting for an expert to be called to say that,
Well, that's one of the things I actually wrote down. And that's a huge criticism as well. And I wrote down here, 1, there was no coroner.
No.
2, there was no forensic anthropologist. And 3, and unforgivable, there are no in situ photographs of the sifting of the burn pit. Right? So what's the saying? No photos, it didn't happen. Those guys could have invented any story that they wanted, right? And one of our members in Foul Play, BB, bless her soul, she goes, those bones came in a box and left in a box.
Yes.
And if you find human cremains in a burn pit, don't you think you should, A, don't touch them, call the coroner, call a forensic anthropologist who can ID them? Because could you imagine if those boys sifted the burn pit and a forensic anthropologist came along and said, guys, you did a great job. The only problem is it was a sheep or a cow.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yes.
these idiots started sifting all these cremates. They had no idea what they were sifting, right? And now they're trying to say, oh, yeah, we collected all the bones. We gave them to the forensic anthropologist, Dr. Bennett. He said they were human, right? How can you go from finding cremains in a burn pit and then seeing a box of bones with nothing in between?
Yeah.
Like I said, no coroner, no forensic anthropologist, and no in situ photographs, right?
Yeah.
And that goes to show that I think Dean and both Buting and Strang, they were on the ball, right?
Yeah.
They asked a lot of good questions, but in their summation, they weren't scathing enough,
True.
right? They weren't scathing enough. And they tried to get the poor coroner, Deborah, to come on and give her statements. And Norm Garn just goes, Judge, we have a disgruntled employee here. We want her out, right? So they turfed the jury out and they turfed her out.
Yeah.
And this was the state coroner.
Exactly.
Yes.
And
that was a big problem. Big problem.
Yeah. Getting back to the actual bones, we read testimony, don't we, that it was Tom Sturdivant who basically accepts responsibility for not having taken photographs, because of course by the time John Ertl is called, he looks at the pile and says, well, that pile has already been dealt with. But in actual fact, we have nobody saying, oh yes, we gathered the bones together. What John Ertl, I think, saw was just the fact that these bones had just been dumped, and so it looks as if it's a pile of bones that somebody's gathered together, but it's not. And that's the reason why he said he didn't take any photographs, was because, well, the bones should be all around this place. They shouldn't be in a pile as if somebody's already started to scoop them up.
Yes, that's a very good point, because I forgot the actual witness who they spoke to in court. They caught him out because when they were photographs of the burn pit were taken on November the 6th, right? And we know they were done by Trooper Reese, right? And there's a couple of close-up pictures of the burn pit, and you can see it's flat. Yeah. It's just a layer of ash, right? And this is before they knew anything about cremains, Paul. They knew nothing about the cremains. And to make matters worse, there's the dog Bear, right? Just sitting there, standing there, minding his own business, right? Not paying any attention, not stressed or barking. Then when they spoke to the witness, I think it could have been Sturdivant, they said, how did the burn pit look like? Goes, oh, we saw a pile of bones in the center of the burn pit, which contradicted the photographs 2 days earlier. There was no pile of bones. So obviously what someone has done is they got cremains in a bucket and just tipped them and walked away. Right? That's all they did. They tipped them and walked away. All the evidence to me suggests that Teresa was cut to pieces. I know that sounds terrible. She was burnt in the burn barrel. Yes. Right? In the burn barrel. And what they did is they got the burn barrel or stuff from the burn barrel and tipped them in the burn pit. But they forgot that they left behind cremains in the burn barrel, right? Yes. So you've got this fantastic situation whereby Buting and Strang are basically, well, Strang in particular saying to Eisenberg, well, how do you explain the How do you explain the cremains in the burn barrel, right? And then Kratz goes, oh, it's because Stephen moved them. Now wait for it. Stephen picked up the biggest bones, because he couldn't crunch them, and decided to shift them to his sister's burn barrel. Well, all he had to do was scrape all he had to do was just scrape all the ash, put it in a bucket, and drive 50 miles somewhere else and dump them, and no one would have found them, right? So he's playing Santa Claus with cremains. He put some in his sister's burn barrel. Why? and then decides to go the Manitowoc County gravel pit and dump 3 debris piles, Paul.
Yeah.
3. And that's why Ken Kratz said, I'm not going to spend any more than 20 seconds about the cremains at the Manitowoc County gravel pit. Mm-hmm. Look how sneaky Ken Kratz is, right? He writes a book and he goes, well, if they were Teresa's cremains, Stephen Avery put them there, right? So he's blaming Stephen Avery for everything. But what they don't do is they don't mention Cuss Road.
No.
They don't mention Cuss Road at all. It's nothing. It's a tree stump, right? Yep. So it's interesting. It's interesting, Paul. They don't say, well, yeah. Look, we did find body parts and cremains at Cuss Road. Yeah, Stephen did it. Because then it's going to start looking so bizarre that you've got cremains now in what? 4 different locations?
Yeah.
It really is completely bizarre.
Yeah. And you've also got this Zander Road situation where you've got this Paul Metz saying that his cattle were disturbed by this loud whoosh, and this burning flesh. And he's saying that he's smelling this. And as far as the flow cries, the salvage yard is over 4 miles away. And the wind direction proves that. And now he's changing his story. It was clear. It's clear to me that at one time they wanted to have this this burning episode of Teresa Halbach at Zander Road because that was the house he was looking at, that Stephen was looking at. And then by sheer luck, they discovered that Stephen Avery had a bonfire on that Monday night. Yes. And that's when they were, wow, this get Metz to shut up. We don't need him anymore. We've got something far better that we can do with these bones. Anyway, moving on. Sorry, one of the experts they did have was the Scott that Janine and Jerry called was Scott Fairgrieve, who
oh yes,
I was disappointed that he's basically kind of let the Manitowoc Sheriff's Department off. Well, as I say, it's Tom Sturdevan who sort of admitted responsibility after, I believe it was a Jason Jost had said, there's these bones, But the other expert is I've put Patricia Arquez. Is that her name? The
Avizu.
That's it.
The one that was going against Dr. LeBeau.
Yeah,
the one that was going.
Now, as a forensic gangster, tell me about her. Tell me about her.
Well, the whole situation, right? The big central piece, and this was a huge mistake. The big central piece was the blood vial, right? Yeah. So they came up with a planting scenario, and they pointed a finger at the blood vial, right? And so the state, of course, knew this. And so the state were going, well, how do we actually disprove that it's not a planting scenario? I know, we'll get the FBI to do an EDTA test, right? Because EDTA is an anticoagulant, right? But the problem, I spoke to a phlebologist who takes my blood, and I said to her, how long do you normally keep these purple top tubes with EDTA? Because we keep them for a week, and then we chuck them out, right? Yeah. And sometimes they put it in deep freeze for the blood, but they don't keep it long term, right? Because no one knows what happens to the EDTA in blood that's at room temperature and stored for years.
Yes.
Right? You don't know what the hell. So the FBI harebrained scheme come up with this testing protocol for EDTA, right? And so Dr. LeBeau was saying, we didn't detect any EDTA. But to Buting's credit, my God, he was on the ball. He goes, but don't you think that you had limitations in your test? Goes, there's a detection limit.
Yes.
Right? So EDTA could have been there, but it was too low. Exactly. Or it was broken down and you couldn't detect it. Yes. But it could have still been there. Right? Absolutely. And so Janine, I think it was Janine, she just gave this long spiel about quality control, she said that the methodology actually was quite robust, but if you're looking at fresh samples of EDTA. And so what was funny, I read all the reports. One was 600 pages, and it said, we guarantee a shelf life of 1 to 2 years. And that's it. Right? They were looking at a sample that I think at the time was 9 years old.
Yes.
They couldn't even give a guarantee on what type of results they were going to get. So Janine, I think was her name, said, look, even though they didn't detect EDTA, it doesn't mean that it was there. It wasn't there. It could have still been there, but in very small quantities, or it had broken down, right? So what was funny was the judge even thought the EDTA test was all garbage. You know why? I'll tell you why. Because had EDTA been found, right, you reckon that the state would have just said, oh, my God, it's planted blood.
Yeah.
They would have said, oh, yeah, but EDTA is found in car cleaning products. Yeah. So how do you know that her car wasn't cleaned with a cleaning product containing EDTA? And when Cherie Cohen got her swabs, she got some EDTA on there, right? Yeah. Yeah. So, in other words, they already had a backup plan, right? So whether it was EDTA positive, EDTA negative, the state would have argued their way. So in my opinion, forget the EDTA. The EDTA is junk science, right? Yes, if you're looking at a fresh sample, but sample of blood that's 9 years old and you don't have it in the right proper storage conditions, forget it. It's voodoo. And just if I can comment, Paul.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Can you believe that Dr. Lebeau said, see these 3 swabs here? He tested 6. See these 3 swabs here? They were negative for EDTA. And Buting said, wait a minute, did you actually test those swabs? And he goes, no.
No.
So you can imagine J. Edgar Hoover, who founded a lot of the FBI, he would have been turning in his grave where when one agent said, oh, yeah, it was negative, but we never tested it. Well, that's instant dismissal, right? Yeah. That's embarrassing, right?
Yeah.
So the whole thing was time-consuming and a farce.
Yeah. I mean, we've both watched that How to Fix a Drug Scandal. Oh, Annie Ducombe was basically thrown out for what we call dry labbing, and that's exactly what Mark Lebeau did there, isn't it?
That's what Mark Lebeau. So he wrote his report. I'm too lazy to test these other 3. I'll make it negative anyway. Don't worry about it. Honestly, his integrity was shot. Right after, and Buting goes, oh, so you wanted to go that far, did you? He should have turned to the judge and said, Judge, can we just toss out all that crap? Because he's now made a call on 3 samples that weren't tested. And I'll bet you the FBI charged the state too, right? Yeah. That's garbage science. Correct.
Yeah, I mean, that was another thing, wasn't it? Yeah. Another thing that Jerry points out is, why are you even doing these tests? Why are you called in? Your job is to look at, federal cases where there's, corruption within, the authorities.
That's what Lebeau said. That's what Lebeau, you know what Buting should have said? Oh, so you're here for corruption, are you? Well, you're in the right place. Just
absolutely.
Look around. Have a look at that have a look at that prosecutor for a start, right? But it honestly was a farce. But how do you explain this? The FBI took the RAV4 apart and scanned it.
Yeah.
What the hell? They took the whole RAV4 apart and laser scanned it, right? You know what they were looking for? They're looking for fingerprints.
Yeah.
They didn't find Brendan's nor Stephen's in the RAV4. Otherwise, it would have said it, right?
Yeah.
So the FBI got involved 2 ways with the EDTA testing and also taking the RAV4 apart and scanning it. So I'll bet you there's no RAV4. It's gone. It's gone.
Yeah. That well, yes, that wouldn't surprise us at all. Apparently, I'm trying to think who was it that told me that they reckon that they saw the RAV4 in the sheriff's in Manitrock Sheriff's Department car park, and like an underground car park in '09. But as you say, unless there are multiple RAV4s, which is another contentious issue, but one to which I'm afraid I'm a bit of a disbeliever on that one. Although I'm always open to, if people say, well, we've discovered this, then let's look at that.
Yes,
but it's as you
people,
say.
Yes,
the fact they've handed back the bones. Chances are, as you say, that this RAV4, which was supposedly in this underground
correct
unit,
in a storage unit, correct. But you think about it now, Paul. So many years have gone by, right? It's probably forensically useless unless it contains hairs or something that's preserved. But the FBI took it apart, so they disturbed the crime scene. They took out the seeds, they laser scanned it, they were all over the place, which means that what they've done is they've contaminated the crime scene. So therefore, do you take any credence? Do you put any sort of like justification if you find some forensic evidence? No, that all had to be done initially when the RAV4 was actually examined, right? And so I think, Paul, like the bones, the RAV4 is gone ski.
Yeah.
I would say it's gone.
Sure. We've been at this now nearly an hour.
And we haven't talked about the lawyers yet.
I'm going to say yes. I think if this is okay with you, that we catch up again next week to look at as I say, one or two things that I'm concerned about in particular. Again, another thing I always thought about as I was watching Making a Murderer: when is that cabinet going to appear in court? And it never did. And I think that's one of when Stephen writes his letter to, was it In Touch magazine or something? He writes this letter with 15 points about where Dean and Jerry went wrong,
Yes.
And I wonder about whether that letter was completely drafted by Steve or whether he had help in drafting that. It's interesting that Dean and Jerry are quite happy about the fact that their sort of ineffective assistance of counsel is being looked at. Certainly, the cabinet not coming in. I think there should have been, as Steve points out, and as obviously Kathleen Zellner has pointed out, there should have been more experts. But I think also we need to look. I think if you're agreeable to do a third part, we'll look at also, with the benefit of hindsight, how even Kathleen Zellner would look at would with hindsight have done things differently. Well, because this is going to be a landmark case, isn't it?
There's no other case like it that I know of. There are many other wrongful convictions, but this one is the mother of all wrongful convictions, because you have one man who's been potentially wrongfully convicted twice, and it's the same guys that went after him in '85 were still pulling the strings in 2005 because they had a vested interest to do so. And of course, you have Paul Brendan Dassey, who walked into the bear trap, because he did, because had he had proper legal representation, Brendan wouldn't have said a word, right? Brendan wouldn't have said a word. And, all he had to say was, you prove I was there, as in I participated in a rape, in a murder, in this and this and this. Yes, I helped my uncle. Yes, we gathered some stuff. We burned some stuff, but I went home. I never saw anything. And how they're going to disprove it? They can't, right? They can't. So because of all the things that counted it, don't forget that Brendan and Stephen both had low IQs. And I like your analogy, what you said right at the beginning. This was a class distinction war. This was a bunch of smucks from downtrodden family that nobody cared about or wanted to know about. And all you have to do is look at Michael O'Kelly's letter.
Yeah.
Right? Remember that email? This is a branch
Disgusting.
of the family that we need to cut, and they're all
Yeah.
evil, and this and this and this.
Oh,
And also in Ken Kratz's book, right, how he completely destroys the family, saying that Ma and Pa only care about their son, and they would sacrifice Brendan Dassey, and Barb would sacrifice her son for her brother, etc. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God. So they're casting Brendan and Stephen as evil, evil people. And then on the contrast side, you've got this beautiful angelic person who is a good Catholic girl, never done anything wrong in her life, and look at her family, important family members in the community, which no doubt they are. And
Oh, yeah.
but my first point that I wrote down was victimology.
Yeah.
Right? And we can discuss
Absolutely.
it next week if you want, because I wrote down some notes. And it's like, I look at all these crime shows and they go bang, 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 bang. This is what you do. Now, I even read an article, How to Solve a Crime. Right? and they listed all the things you do. The MTSO and the investigators did the complete opposite.
Yeah.
Right? They said Stephen Avery, and they forgot about everything else. Right? That was their approach. So next time we get together, Paul, we've got to start off with victimology. I think that's very important.
Excellent. Well, listen, once again, many thanks for joining. Many thanks to let's just a shout out to some of the new people that have joined up. We've got Sean Maloney, hi, Sherry Lynn Bondillo, Kelly Cowles. Who else have we got here? This isn't working very well. Why is it not working very well? Sammy G, there we go.
Part of a lot of them are part of Foul Play, which is awesome.
Yep.
Paul, are there any questions that we can answer?
There was one question that Mark answered about how Stephen Avery was doing. Had he recovered from his COVID case? And yes, he has. Mark was saying that he'd actually spoken to Stephen Avery this morning, and he remains positive. Wait, we've got Becky Hatfield. Who else have we got? Hi, Becky. Jennifer Manning's here. Hi there. Mark points out that he's spoken to 3 jurors independently. I've certainly spoken to one of them. No, I think that we're all clear to go. So
awesome.
Let's get together next week. And I mean, if your team managed to win another game, then I will take credit for that. I will definitely take credit for that.
Yes, for sure. Awesome. No, but I just want to say thank you so much for inviting me to come on.
Well, thank you for joining.
It's good to have these discussions, and we can have a fresh look at the case. And like I said, there are many knowledgeable people in chat, and it's fantastic. Absolutely.
Right. I'm gonna say cheerio. Just stay where you are just one moment. I'll just have a quick chat with you just as we finish, just if that's awesome. Okay. So cheerio, everybody. We'll catch you all next week, if not before. Bye for now.